The Comox Treaty will be the first of its kind. We have carried the mandate from the Comox people from AIP vote to negotiate a treaty that our Comox people can accept. We are nearing the finalization of negotiations with Canada and BC, and it's important for our people to understand what's in the agreement and the supporting elements that will be there to support the successful implementation of the Comox Treaty. Although our treaty is negotiated to the best of our abilities, the agreement needs certain supporting elements to make it work. We will be reviewing all of the elements inside and out of the Comox Agreement to meet the future needs of the nation. These include the Comox vision, the winning conditions, economic development, land use planning, capacity building, and enforcement. Let's take a closer look at each of these elements to see how they all fit together.
It's so important for our people to decide who our members are. And isn't that what we want as Indigenous people? It's for us to decide who our people are, what we're going to do with our land, what we're going to do with our money, how we're going to grow to be self-sufficient and not relying on, the government. My message, I guess, for our people, our Comox First Nation people, is to be proud to be Comox First Nation members, because your people fought for this. We fought many years for it. We can do this, and we can be a healthy nation. And I mean healthy by being strong and being kind to one another, and knowing that your ancestors did all this work for you because we believed that it was the best thing.
Ihochis, moving forward together.
We, the Comox people, envision a prosperous and healthy nation in which we exercise our rights and title throughout our territory, honoring our people, lands, waters, cultures, and languages. To support our vision, we must uphold the pillars of good governance. The pillars are people, moving forward together. This includes our vision, our Comox members, participation in decision-making, meaningful information sharing, non-member residents. Another pillar is our territory, our inherent responsibility to the lands, airs, and waters. This is the respect for the spirit of the territory, authority over our land, economic development, and infrastructure. Another pillar is resources, having the tools to support our vision and growth. This includes infrastructure capacity, institutional capacity, human capacity, financial capacity, accountability and reporting, and expanding the diversity of our revenue sources. Another pillar is laws and jurisdiction, exercising authority beyond the Indian Act. This includes the rule of the law, expansion of jurisdiction, membership, and enforcement. Another pillar is governing systems, the ability to implement good governance practices. This includes transparency and fairness, results-based governance, cultural alignment of governing systems, effective intergovernmental relations. The pillars of good governance have been made available for nations to adopt by Centre for First Nations Governance, led by Satsan, Chief Herb George, and are based on extensive work over many years. By following the pillars of good governance, we will be aligned with our traditional governing principles.
Comox has been in the BC Treaty process since 1994. Negotiations have carried out over the years with the mandate to acquire a treaty that our people can accept. In 2006, we started over at stage 1 and worked our way to stage 4, the agreement in principle negotiations. The AIP was voted on and accepted by the Comox people in March of 2011. And then we officially entered stage 5 of negotiations in March 2012. And now, after a decade in stage 5, BC and Canada have come to the table with an offer for Comox to contemplate. Until recently, modern-day treaties assumed a rights modification model, which means that rights would be modified to match the rights negotiated in the treaty. The new approach is called recognition and predictability, and that means that your rights are recognized and affirmed and will be exercised as according to the treaty. The treaty will clearly state that existing rights are not extinguished, surrendered, or modified. There is no extinguishment, there is no modification. The next change is called periodic renewal. This allows the three governments, BC, Canada, and the nations, to open up parts of the treaty to renegotiate every 10 years. This allows for the treaties to evolve with the ever-changing world, and the agreements are no longer set in stone and become living agreements. This includes a missed opportunities clause. This means that if there's a provision that was missed previously in the initial treaty, it can be added to the Comox Treaty during periodic renewal. This also includes unforeseen circumstances. There is also language that says if another nation establishes a new right through court or other negotiations, the government will enter into negotiations with Comox to determine if that right should be included in the treaty. Then there is improved language for consultation. Currently, the governments have the duty to consult if they plan to do anything that could affect your rights. Under the old treaty language, they would only have to consult in situations that have been identified in the treaty. The new language adds strength to the duty to consult. It says that consultation is required for any activities that can affect people's ability to exercise their rights or affect treaty lands. This is important to the protection of our territory. The fiscal chapter sets out the commitment for governments to provide fiscal financing agreements to Comox. FFAs will replace existing funding agreements between the Indigenous Service Canada and Comox. The fiscal relationship also addresses three major concerns of Comox. One, ensuring there will be enough funds to be ready for self-government. We call those government startup costs. Number two, ensuring there are enough funds to pay for the actual activities of governing, so band support funding increase. And number three, ensuring that all program funding currently received by Comox continues.
So currently, status Indians are exempt from paying taxes for income they earn on reserve. Now we're able to keep that. Previous treaties eliminated that. We're able to keep that. So the reserves will become treaty settlement lands, but they will be treated as Indian reserves for tax purposes. And the tax exemption can be used on any reserve in Canada. And each nation will also have its own direct tax powers that can be exercised at the discretion of the nation. We will be able to collect property tax throughout treaty settlement lands, and we will also be able to exempt our own members from paying property tax. Your nation, Comox Nation, can exempt all members from paying property tax, and we can still collect property tax from non-members. Like supposing the Southlands becomes a huge development, we'll be able to collect all those property taxes from there. We've been able to negotiate forestry revenues of approximately 2 to 2.5 million annually. We're in the process of concluding those negotiations, but there will also be other natural resource revenue sharing agreements for other activities that may include forest, mining, and energy resources.
As part of our negotiations, there have always been certain conditions that need to be met to support the treaty. These negotiations have all happened at the main table with BC and Canada, but are not a part of the treaty document itself. If you'd like to know more about our winning conditions, please see our winning conditions video.
The treaty will make Comox one of the largest landowners in the territory, including up to 12,500 acres of land when fully implemented. There are several land parcels that will be designated for the purpose of economic development. We are looking at all viable options in respect to the land and its development, and members will be engaged on those decisions. Opportunities on treaty settlement land will be plentiful for Comox members. With the amount of lands, particularly in the south of the territory, there is development potential for years to come. This is the time for our members to bring out all the talents, ambitions, dream, and work towards making them a reality with the support of the nation. The treaty will make Comox one of the largest landowners in the territory, including up to 12,500 acres of land when fully implemented. Comox First Nation will also be the jurisdictional authority on these lands and will set out the regulations and laws for if, when, and how the lands will be developed. For all lands, a series of land plans that go from establishing a vision to the lands all the way to practical issues such as setback to a watercourse will be put in place as laws. Currently, Comox First Nations Comprehensive Community Plan is the highest level document. Imagine if you were flying far about the earth and you could see areas of land use, but not the details. This is the level of the Comprehensive Community Plan. This plan sets out the vision for the lands and for areas like education, housing, and wellness. The next level of planning is a land use plan. And this plan looks in greater details on the potential uses for each area of lands. So imagine if you're now closer to the earth and can see the differences between commercial and industrial areas. For example, the treaty will set out additional regulations, and eventually a highly detailed zoning law will be developed and will provide guidance on uses, densities, and the placement of buildings. At this level, imagine you are only just a few meters above the earth and you can see all the details: road widths, infrastructure corridors, setbacks to watercourses, and other details. Not all lands will be developed or will be sites for forestry or gravel extraction or other activities. Some of the lands will be set aside as protected areas for cultural, spiritual uses, or conserved because of their high environmental or habitat values. Comox First Nation members will be engaged as decisions are made on where best to move forward with new plans and actions.
A Treaty Capacity Action Plan has been in place since 2009 to support the success of our journey towards self-governance. It is imperative that we continue building capacity in a variety of areas. Comox will regularly update and implement our Capacity Action Plan that sets out not only a draft organizational chart for the future Comox government and administration, but outlines the skills and education required to fill each role. As a result, Comox members can best prepare for future opportunities. The lands package that is being contemplated opens up many opportunities beyond working within the nation's government or administration. For example, in the Southlands, as we develop a new city, we will need all that is required for that growth. This includes small businesses, city workers, planners, developers, and everything outside and in between. This is an opportunity for our people to follow their dreams and for the nation as a self-governing body to be able to support our members whenever and wherever possible. To run a successful self-governing nation, we will need people to fill future roles. Ideally, those roles will be filled by Comox members for generations to come. By creating the draft organizational chart and understanding the skills and education required to fill each position, Comox will be better prepared to support its goals. Through various projects completed over the past several years, Comox has taken steps to build our human, institutional, infrastructure, and financial capacity. This work will prepare us for implementation of the treaty so that we can feel confident in our ability to govern ourselves. What opportunities are you excited for?
Comox has worked hard to address several enforcement issues that modern-day treaties and Indian Act nations have faced to date. We have worked collaboratively with provincial and federal governments and agencies, as well as self-governing nations and treaty lead tables alike. The treaty team focused on policing and policy work, adjudication, relationship with the courts, enforcement of Comox laws, and is capacity building for enforcement of Comox laws at effective date. In addition, priorities concentrated on gaining a better understanding of prosecutorial functions and structuring of Comox treaty language to reflect the needs of the nation. Furthermore, it enables the parties, BC, Canada, and Comox, and enforcement agencies to engage on adjudication and link with provincial courts, policing, and First Nation law enforcement officers, natural resource laws. It is Comox's perspective that without enforcement, no nation can truly be self-governing in the sense enforcement is reconciliation in action. As you can see, there is so much more to the Comox Treaty than just chapters in a document. And our nation has set the bar for how treaties will be negotiated for all nations in BC moving forward. This process has taken decades, but it was necessary to get to a place in the negotiations where your treaty team feels confident in the agreement that will be presented and voted on by the Comox people. From the entire treaty team, we thank you for your continued patience, support, and faith in our ability to negotiate on your behalf. The future of Comox is bright and full of potential.
The Comox Treaty is an opportunity for our people to demonstrate resurgence and resilience by getting out from the oppression of the Indian Act, which was designed to suppress and colonize us. By becoming a self-governing nation and removing ourselves from colonial rule, our treaty will allow us to come together to create a system that works for us, not against us. The Indian Act offers little to no economic opportunities for Indigenous communities. Through opportunities in the Comox Treaty, I am looking forward to seeing Comox thrive through the development of economic establishments while incorporating our Comox cultures and teachings into products and businesses. Through developing a Comox constitution and new systems under the treaty, we can work together to create positive change in our community. We can acknowledge and honor our differences and give opportunity to reclaim traditional ways of life and practices. I do not believe the obstacles created under the Indian Act can be overcome within the system in which they were created. This is why I'm excited for the Comox Treaty.